Ice is dropped on a drizzly Friday morning here in the Atlanta area. I think it's supposed to get worse. Yay. All the
Yeah.
rain.
Yep.
All the rain. I think we're supposed to get between 2 and 4 inches over the next couple of days. Can't wait.
Excellent.
Excited. Thrilled. Jumping up and down. That just means I'll be sitting inside watching a lot of the Women's World Cup is what it means. It's Friday soccer down here, first Friday of the international break, and these things can get a little sideways sometimes. And if you guys want to take it sideways, that's completely fine. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Let us know what's on your mind this morning. There is a hashtag Friday flashback question on the board, and it revolves around the Women's World Cup, which kicks off this afternoon in France. What's your favorite women's soccer memory? Favorite game, favorite goal, favorite player? Chime in on that, because this is, I think, a watershed moment for the women's game in the world. This is the tournament that, one, is the most competitive we've ever seen. Generally, it feels like it's the U.S. and maybe one or two other countries that can win it. This time around, I feel like maybe there's 6 to 8 countries who could win this, and a bunch of others in a tier just below that could upset any of those top-tier teams in a one-off. So this, I think, shows that growth over the decades of women's soccer. It's really starting to come to fruition in this tournament. So favorite matches, players, goals, what have you. We'll get into those as we go this morning, and we'll get you set for the Women's World Cup. But, John, we had some people who asked from yesterday, some people who missed the Afternoon Delight edition of the show, our thoughts on the U.S. roster for the Gold Cup and just where the U.S. men's national team is at this stage. One, I think the U.S. women's national team has a better chance of winning their tournament this summer than the men.
Yeah. And yesterday when we did the Afternoon Delight, it's hard for me sometimes to bite my tongue. And I will readily admit that I kind of wanted everyone else to get their feelings out first. And looking at the roster, I still have a big spot shadow around the whole Josh Sargent thing. And looking at the group that is going at it, starting in about 25 minutes with who's the first matchup? Colombia and Ukraine in the U20s. I look at that final 8 and I'm sitting there going, okay, I think that there's a decent shot there for a lot of those countries to win a title. But looking at Gold Cup by comparison, I'm like, my optimism is not there at all. My optimism is more in Poland than it is here, close to what's going on. And I don't know what that says about where my brain is right now, other than just the disappointment of how things have gotten to this point when it comes to that roster. And anticipate, you want the best. Do not misunderstand. I want the best for every national team that goes out there. Don't care the age. Don't care men, women. I want to see the United States do well. But when you're given what you're given after a lackluster performance against Jamaica, and you're given the roster that we analyzed yesterday, my attention is more in Poland right now, because I'm not all that optimistic about what could be going down in a very short period of time. And you throw your hands up at points and you just sit there and you go, it's like, come on. And it's usually, for me, it's a little more vocal and a little more colorful, but it's frustrating, and it's compounded by decisions that you don't think should be made. And so right now, my fingers drumming on my desk in anticipation of all of it really doesn't translate to radio, but it's very, very fast drumming, and it's very, very frustrating.
Well, but here's my question. I mean, with the roster, what would be different for you? Like, what could they have done differently in the roster to make you feel differently?
Well, I mean, obviously, we got into the goalkeeping yesterday, and for me, it all starts at the back. And you got into the Zach Steffen discussion, and for me, that's something that could be a concern.
Yeah, but this is what I want to get to, the big picture, though.
Okay, go.
There's nothing about the roster that changes their chances of winning the Gold Cup. Zero. And this is something that I think it's really easy to jump and yell and scream and throw things whenever something happens. Now, look, I don't like the Josh Sargent omission at all because I feel like he needed to play in one of these tournaments this summer, and when you didn't take him to the U20 roster, you had to take him to the Gold Cup. I don't like that decision at all. Josh Sargent on this roster does not mean you're suddenly the favorite of the Gold Cup.
No.
Brad Gazan in this roster doesn't mean you're the favorite for the Gold Cup. Darlington Nagbe, Miles Robinson, nothing dramatically changes with those. So there's two different things here that I think we need to discuss. One, the United States has lost the top spot in CONCACAF, and by a wide margin. Now they have to prove that they can win that back. Right now, I'm not so sure that anything changes in that discussion at the end of the summer. It's going to take more time than that. But the roster decisions are different because we can't lump everything together. You can't say that, well, now they have no chance to win the Gold Cup because they didn't take Josh Sargent or they didn't take Darlington Nagbe or something. That wouldn't have changed anything dramatically. The individual decisions are part of the process to get you to the ultimate goal, which is to be the best team in CONCACAF, which the United States has been and which they are not right now. When you finish fifth out of the Hex, you're not the best team in CONCACAF. Flat out. You're not a favorite to win the Gold Cup. Flat out. When you get bounced in the semis in 2015 at home, you're not a favorite to win the Gold Cup until you win it again. Flat out. And, yeah, they won it in 17, which was kind of that in-between Gold Cup. It's not quite the same. They won that. That was good. Teams weren't at full strength. This is a full-strength Gold Cup. They're not the favorite. Those roster decisions wouldn't have changed anything in that regard. So that I want to separate those discussions because if you just lump them together, I don't think we can get to the points here. They're not the favorite. They weren't going to be the favorite. They could have picked the perfect roster for everybody on Twitter, did a poll, did a consensus, and you still would not be the favorite. Flat out. Long term, there's a couple different things here. I feel like Josh Sargent needed a tournament this summer for long-term development. He would be better off in 2022 in that World Cup if you qualify. He would be better off if he got a tournament this summer and lived it and breathed it and had the struggles with it, but also had the successes with it. Even if it's on a bench role with the first team or in a starting role with the U20s, either one would benefit him in the long run. Wasted opportunity. Flat out wasted opportunity. Goalkeeper, Zach Steffen is Greg Berhalter's guy. There's no changing that. And Zach Steffen is, it's arguable if he's the number one or not, but he's not the number 5. So
yeah, he ain't chopped liver.
No, I mean, my personal preference is for Brad Gazan to get an opportunity because I feel like he did nothing wrong to fall out of favor. He just never got that big opportunity in a big tournament with the big team that he needed. He got time when Tim Howard went on a sabbatical, and he got time when other people weren't there. And I feel like Brad Gazan was kind of next in line, and he's done really, really well here. And I think in a possession-based system that Greg Berhalter wants to implement, he'd be a good fit. Steffen is his guy. That's not a giant difference either way. Defenders, Miles Robinson has not been part of the mix. I think they wasted an opportunity to either give him a game against Jamaica, since they played Josh Sargent and didn't ultimately take him to the Gold Cup. They could have given Robinson 30 minutes, 45 minutes there. They could have given him a week of training with the first team to get a look, because he has emerged late. Not being on the roster, I'm not worked up about it, because you're talking about center backs of Matt Miazga, who had the captain's armband, so he's a guy that Berhalter believes in. Walker Zimmerman, who's had a very good season in MLS this season with LAFC. Aaron Long, who's been one of the best defenders in MLS over the last couple of years. And Omar Gonzalez, who's been there and done that. And I know that riles people up just like Josie Altidore or Michael Bradley do, but Omar has that experience. Miles doesn't. In this tournament, I'm completely fine with Omar getting the nod. And Omar was really good on Wednesday, too, so let's not rule that out. Nagby's the one out of the Atlanta guys that I feel like would fit what Berhalter wants to do and would make the team better. Would he make them a favorite? No, it's not going to change to that degree. But would he make the team better? I think he would. I think he would be a player that would really complement what Greg Berhalter wants to accomplish. But, you know, when you're getting down to players at that level of the roster and in those types of spots, you're kind of splitting hairs to a degree. It's not like Greg Berhalter took the 20th best central midfielder instead of the second. You know, you're talking about the fifth guy over the sixth guy, or the seventh guy over the sixth guy, or the eighth guy over the sixth guy. I mean, it's more of what you like personally and what fits you. So my questions going into the Gold Cup, and let's be targeted about what they need to accomplish now. They have to make the final. I think they have to make the final, or it's a failure. I think they have to show the ability to dominate lesser teams, and that's going to be dominating them through possession and putting away chances. That they have to not be in risky situations in the group stage. There's no excuse for it. If you're having problems with Guyana, for example, you can't. No, you can't be there. You got to win that game, and you got to dominate it. And then they also have to show the ability when they get into a final with Mexico, or now, I mean, against a Jamaican team or a Costa Rican team that are very good, that can push them. They have to show the ability to be able to navigate those situations between, okay, we can't dominate possession here, but we can still be effective, limit the chances for the opposition, and win this match. They have to prove some of that. Are they going to beat Mexico in this tournament? The chances are no. But they have to show that they can play on the same field. These are the things I'm looking for this summer out of the Gold Cup. With this roster, with taking Gonzalez, with taking Bradley, with taking Altidore. Altidore's the youngest of that group. He's the most likely to still be available in 2022. And I was not in the camp that I think some people were of don't even worry about winning this tournament, just focus on 2022. I don't think that would have benefited you. So Bradley, Gonzalez, Altidore, fine to be here because they're going to help you win this tournament. I think they're going to be needed in the early stages of qualifying as well. I think you don't just cast veteran experience aside for no reason. Are they going to be there in 2022? Who knows? It's less likely because it's 4 years down the road, and that's 4 more years for them, 3 more years for them. But could it happen? Sure. DeMarcus Beasley defied the odds and played forever. So could it happen for somebody else? Absolutely. Those guys being here, though, show you that this is not a write-off tournament. This is not a, well, let's just get some experience for a bunch of young guys. So that means you got to perform. You've got to perform, and you've got to inspire people that, hey, this is a different U.S. men's national team than what it was in 2017 when they failed at the biggest hurdle. They have to inspire people and make them feel like that's not the case anymore. We'll have to wait and see.
As you were talking, I was writing some things down.
Uh-oh, that's frightening.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's just so I wouldn't forget them, considering I'm 107 years old. And I wrote down one word, and it was aura. I don't have an aura of invincibility with this side that you might have had in the past. You look at the formation experimentation, dudes in positions, things like that. You look at the Jamaica match and you sit there, and it's when you don't have a good feeling in the pit of your stomach about something and you're heading into a tournament, that for me is, it's a red flag. And you got into the idea of trying to, you have the roster out there that shows that you're making an effort to try to win the tournament or do as best you can, make it to a final, what have you. You can't think for 2022, because then what that does is it builds an instant justification and an excuse if you don't achieve a goal.
You can't completely block it out, though, either. You gotta balance it. It can't be the number one goal.
No, but at the same time, you don't want to give anybody that's associated with the program a built-in excuse or an instant out if something goes wrong. And I've always been of the mindset of, this is what's in front of you. Try to do the best you can with the competition that you're performing in, because you don't know who's going to be around later. You don't know who's going to be. I mean, yeah, you mentioned DeMarcus Beasley, who can still play at the age of 58. But you don't know if someone's going to be around. You don't know if Jordan Morris is going to be there. You don't know if Altidore is going to be there. So you can't take the future, put it over there, and take the present for granted. And so for me, it's not a putting everything to the wall, pedal down kind of a thing, but do your best and don't give yourself that justification of, well, we didn't, and so
no, they haven't. No, that hasn't happened. Let's get Berhalter's quote here about the Gold Cup. I would measure success in the Gold Cup on how we perform and can we make it to the final and can we win the Gold Cup. I think it's a good challenge for this team to use that as a marker. So we can blow all of the talk that some in the conversation had about, well, this tournament doesn't mean anything. Your manager has said that it does. So Now, I mean, it's easy to define what success is. Greg Berhalter has said, can you make it to the final? Can you win the tournament? Period. How they perform, okay, a little more nebulous, and that's where it should be. I mean, that needs to be, does it look good? Are you controlling matches? Those types of things that aren't easily quantifiable. But ultimately, can you make the final? Can you win the thing? That's what it comes down to. So 2022, you don't completely throw that to the side, and that's why the Josh Sargent situation bugs me, because you did put him in the mix for this team and didn't take him to the U20s. Yes, I possibly, and I'm not even 100%, I completely agree with the point about Sargent and Berhalter saying it's a simple reason. We think, talking about Altidore and Zardes, that they're ahead of him right now. We have to do what we felt was best for the team right now, and that's the decision we made. So that's another statement that amplifies this tournament. The United States is there to win it. They're there to get to the final. If they don't get to the final, it's a failure. It's a complete failure. Okay. Are Altidore and Zardes ahead of Sargent right now? I think Altidore is. I think Gyasi Zardes was last year. I'm not 100% convinced that Gyasi Zardes is right now. That's not a good situation, because you took the U20 World Cup away from Josh Sargent, and you're taking a player who is maybe ahead of them right now. That's the balancing act. And that's why it's difficult to do what Greg Berhalter's doing. That's why it's not an easy job. It's not as simple as just rolling a ball out and picking guys and going to play. It is managing a program. I think they failed in managing Josh Sargent's summer. Agreed. He gets back to the club early now. That's great, but he could have done that if he went to the U20 World Cup. If there was any question that Gyasi Zardes was going to be on this roster ahead of Josh Sargent, then Josh Sargent should have went to the U20s.
Yep.
But these are very different things, and that's why I don't want to lump everything into one conversation, because Josh Sargent being on this roster doesn't make them the favorite in the Gold Cup. It doesn't. Flat out. He would be the backup forward. That's a fact. He would sit behind Josie Altidore. And he should. But Josh Sargent being on this roster, or, and I think more importantly, being on the U20 roster, would have helped prepare him for the long haul.
Yes.
And that's where it got away from them in the decision-making. Can't have that happen anymore. Can't have players missing out on age group World Cups because they might be somewhere else, but they're not definitely going to be somewhere else. They are or they aren't. If it is not a guarantee, then they need to be with their youth national team. That's the way I feel about it, because I just feel like Sargent missed out on a big part of his potential development. But that would not guarantee you a final and a Gold Cup if he's there or not. That's a different conversation. And that's one that, honestly, I think they just have to prove. You know, you could quibble about different lineup choices, different formations, different roster decisions. It's not going to make a dramatic difference. He didn't leave a Lionel Messi on the side and not part of this roster. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't leave Christian Pulisic out and say, well, he's not good enough, so we're not going to take him. He didn't do any of that. It's quibbling about different spots. They have to prove that they are where we hope they are. And we're not going to know until this tournament gets underway. And we'll have to wait and see for the Gold Cup. A lot of questions about the U.S. going into this tournament after that Jamaica loss. And it's a friendly, sure, and you're trying things, sure. Not necessarily the way you wanted to go into this tournament. So we will see how they respond as the tournament gets underway late next week. Next up, though, we're going to talk about a team playing in town tonight. You can join us at Fifth Third Bank Stadium in Kennesaw, Georgia. Atlanta United 2 playing New York Red Bulls 2. We'll get you set with that. We'll also talk a little bit about the USL Championship and the year that the league is having. Hang out with us. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Apolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, June 7th edition of the show. It's Friday Flashback, and your question, using that hashtag, favorite women's soccer memory. Favorite match, favorite team, favorite player, favorite moment in a match. Share those with us on Twitter at Soccer Down here, and we'll get into the start of the Women's World Cup, which kicks off this afternoon from France. We'll get into that as we go this morning as well. But up first, let's talk a little about Atlanta United 2 and New York Red Bulls 2, which will be live tonight at Kennesaw State University, Fifth Third Bank Stadium. Come out and join us if you can. If you can't, you can watch on ESPN+.
Giveaway.
Then go ahead.
Yeah, there's a giveaway.
Well, then tell the people, John.
If you're one of the first 200 people that show up, you get an official military night Atlanta United 2 lid.
Yes, come early, get a hat. But come early and watch a match, and watch a good match, because it's Atlanta United 2 and Red Bulls 2. Young talent, I think, on both sides of the ball for both teams, and it's a little bit of a measuring stick for Atlanta United 2, because the Red Bulls have used their USL team to, I think, the best effect in Major League Soccer. LA Galaxy 2 could have argued that a while back, but then players didn't make the full jump into the first team. That hasn't been the case for the Red Bulls. Having a system like the Red Bulls do helps, because there's familiarity from the 2s to the 1s, and it's a little bit more of a plug-and-play type of system than other clubs use. So big names, big individual talent, not quite as important as understanding roles. And you've seen Brian White come in and do really well with the first team this year. You've seen Sean Nealis play. I think he has 9 starts with Red Bulls 2 this year. He came in as a sub after the red card against Atlanta last month and was excellent as a center back. And he's done really well for the first team as a center back. Aaron Long did that transition before, where no one could see the talent in Aaron Long. Drafted by Portland, went to Seattle, played there in the USL, and then was out of a job. And Red Bulls 2 picked him up, and he was Defender of the Year in the USL, and then he's been one of the best defenders in Major League Soccer since he joined the first team. They do a great job of bringing guys along, but also giving guys minutes to keep them fresh. And again, system really helps. I think the system for Atlanta is a little more open-ended, but we're definitely seeing with Atlanta United 2 the principles on display. Being comfortable in possession, not giving the ball away cheaply, not bombing it long for the sake of bombing it long, trying to play out of trouble, trying to solve problems on the field, trying to control matches with the ball at your feet. Those things take, in my opinion, more time than playing a pressing style. I think it's harder for players to fit in, but we've seen some really good performances this year across the board for Atlanta United 2. They are in a playoff spot right now. They're in a battle in the Eastern Conference to hold on to that. We're also seeing, I think, more academy players play for Atlanta than they do for the Red Bulls. And that's another exciting element of it. And 2 players that we've seen a lot of this year that we've been really impressed by are George Campbell and Will Vint.
And when you mention Red Bulls 2, another couple of names pop into my head when you're talking about guys like Tom Barlow and Christian Caceres, who did work with Red Bulls 2, and now they're with Red Bulls, and everybody who's an Atlanta United fan remembers Tom Barlow. And when you look at Atlanta United 2, and you see a Will Vint, and all of the discussions that have been had about Vint and his talent, and then when you get to see him step out onto the pitch, and the one pass that always seems to stick in my mind is that 60-yard cross that you drop on a dime for a big switch. And then when you have someone who is really asserting himself at the back with it, like a George Campbell, it's fun to see this development. And you're going up against a team in Red Bulls 2 tonight up at Fifth Third that is going to be one of your more stout tests. And Red Bulls last time out thumped Bethlehem. It was 4-0. It was a short bench for Brendan Burke going in, and there were a handful of injuries that caused him to run through his 3 substitutions rather quickly. And Red Bulls 2 took advantage of that. and come out with a 4-0 win. Atlanta United 2. For those who haven't been paying attention, their last 3 matches have been draws, and they've all been 1-1 draws. Last time out, it was 2 weeks ago against Charleston. So you see someone like a Laurent Kissy put the ball in the back of the net for Atlanta United 2. And to see the continued development of the twos, it's been a real treat, and to see guys come through and to see academy guys come in and assert themselves with what Stephen Glass and what Atlanta United want. It's really fun, and if you have the time tonight, yes. During the season, yes. Come and watch it, because then you get to see something from the absolute beginning, and that's the fun part of all of this.
Yeah, it's cool to see players develop and just progress up the ladder and progress in their individual development as well. Vent has had some moments of brilliance this season. He's had some rough moments as well, which is part of the process. George Campbell's had some mistakes, but he's had far more, just solid, good defensive work. You see guys like Jackson Conway, like Alessandro Castro, earn contracts and earn their first professional contracts through their play with Atlanta United's academy, but then getting that time with Atlanta United too as well. It's a fun program to watch, so I do highly recommend coming out if you can. If you can't, pull it up on ESPN Plus. We'll talk you through it and keep you posted on everything. USL Championship, if you don't know the league well, a couple things to talk about here. 26 players from USL Championship and USL League One, the level below the championship, were named to Gold Cup rosters. And the Jamaican team that beat the U.S. on Wednesday had quite a few USL Championship players. That is, I think, a testament to the quality of the league and I think the increased competition around the league. As somebody who's watched second division soccer up close in the United States, honestly, since MLS started, this is the best that it has ever been by far. Not even close. Not even close. The NASL days, you didn't have the overall competition like this. You had a couple of teams that were really good, and you had a lot of teams that were just making up numbers. This season, I think the standings show it across both conferences of the USL Championship. You have a lot of talent. You have a lot of good teams. You have more tactics than you've ever had at this level. You have a lot of development going on with young players getting significant minutes, and it's not just with the two teams either. You're seeing the independent teams invest in development as well. And to me, it goes no further than the teams leading each conference, and both of them have kind of unique stories. New Mexico United, first-year team, taking Albuquerque by storm, drawing 5-figure crowds at Isotopes Park. Really an exciting team to watch, and they have a good mix of talent. They have a player like Devin Sandoval, who is a New Mexico native, who's a veteran. He's played in MLS, a ton of games with Real Salt Lake, played here with Atlanta United too last year. Perfect kind of leader for that group. And then you have a player like Santi Moar, who is an MLS-level talent. And he hasn't found his way into the league just yet, but his performances this year show that he is a first-division level talent. Then you look at the Tampa Bay Rowdies, who used to have a different model. The Rowdies, under the ownership of Bill Edwards, brought in Joe Cole. And Joe Cole was a great, I think, soldier for the Rowdies. He worked hard. He was always there for that team. He led the young players. The perfect kind of European veteran you want to bring into that situation. But now, under the ownership of the Tampa Bay Rays baseball team, they've invested, I think, a little bit more on the development side. They're looking for more diamonds in the rough. They're not spending as much on the roster. They're getting better results. And the player that typifies it for me is Juan Tejada, forward who came through their tryout process, had grown up in the area, played college in the area, had previously spent time with Panama's youth national teams, but fallen through the cracks. Comes into the tryout process, and they're just blown away by how hard he works. And we saw it firsthand at Fifth Third Bank, where he's just a gnat. He's everywhere. And now he's starting to get the goals to show for it. He's become the face of that team in a lot of ways. And that's a big difference. Going from a Joe Cole an incredibly talented, gifted player with a pedigree second to none, to a player who survived your tryout process, but is local and gives you those Tampa Bay roots. The Rowdies are, in my opinion, the best team in the USL Championship this year, and I think they're going to be very tough to knock off because they have the Tejadas, they have the Leo Fernandezes, who's another former MLS talent. He could still go back to that level. He's converted to a wing back now. They have a great defense, and they're just so well balanced. I really like where the league is right now because in the past, you'd flip on a game, and it's like, okay, I'm looking for an individual here, an individual there. Now, the Rowdies have an identity. New Mexico has an identity. Red Bulls, too, obviously, they have an identity because it permeates the whole club. But you're seeing teams with those styles of play and those identities. That's good for the league. The league is growing in a dramatic way, and all that's going to benefit U.S. soccer as a whole, and it's benefiting some other countries in CONCACAF right now in terms of the Gold Cup. You're going to see more players with the U.S. who get time in the USL Championship as either an academy player, as they're on a MLS roster, but they're not getting minutes in their first season or something, and they play in USL Championship. The level is good enough to help develop talent.
And you mentioned Tampa Bay and New Mexico United right now. Between them, one loss. One loss with both of these guys. So if you combine them, it's 14-1-12 right now with Tampa Bay and New Mexico. With Tampa Bay, you talked about it. Red Bulls, too, we're going to see them tonight. Nashville getting ready for their run in MLS with a veteran team and playing at First Tennessee. Ottawa, we know how pesky they can be defensively. They've won 3 of their last 4. Indy 11, they've been unbeaten in their last 5. You get somebody like a Dane Kelly. Lou City, we know what their pedigree is. North Carolina FC with Dave Sarachan. St. Louis, we've seen them already this year. Veteran side, sound defensively, and aren't going to back down from anybody. Charleston, we know what they are with Mike Anhauser. And then you look at Atlanta United, too, and we get to see them first and foremost. In the West, we talk about New Mexico. Then you've got Timbers 2 in Portland. Phoenix has won 3 in a row. Reno has come on recently. And then you end up with El Paso, another team that is doing really well out of the blocks as a first year. Oklahoma City, OKC Energy, they've turned things around. And I think that when OKC is good, I think it makes it speaks well about the USL as a market. Then you're seeing Austin above the playoff line, Orange County SC, not to be confused with FC, and then Los Dos. And those are the 20 teams that I just went through in probably about 45 seconds that are just doing really well and in their markets in addition to being on the pitch. And I think that speaks a lot about what we're seeing in the USL right now with a lot of teams, 36 teams right now in USL. And I just blew through 20 of them in about 45 seconds as to how they're representing the league, the USL Championship right now.
Yeah, what I'll tell you is the league has grown at 36, grown a lot this year. Level of talent's increased. It hasn't diluted. So when people tell you that you can't add teams because the talent level is going to drop in MLS, USL doesn't have those kind of budgets. Talent level, competition, overall quality has not dropped. It's improved. So in MLS with increased budgets, it's not going to happen. The talent is out there. There's a lot of talent. Juan Tejada is a perfect example of that. We're going to take a break, come back, talk about the start of the Women's World Cup this afternoon right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Ray Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, June 7th. The Women's World Cup kicks off in France today, 3 o'clock. France and South Korea get things started. You've got 7 matches between now and the end of the day on Sunday. Some really good ones as well, and we'll kind of run through what you'll be looking at this weekend from France. And we'll start with the hosts. I picked France to win the whole thing. I think home field will help them a lot. I think they're a very talented generation. When you go back and you look at the ESPN preview with Julie Foudy and Kate Markgraf, I thought they made a really good point about France and where the French are in that they've had talent before. They've struggled in tournament play. Best finish ever was 4th place in the World Cup. They lost to the U.S. in the semis in 2011. They've got to get over that hurdle. I think being at home will help them get over that hurdle and help them deal with the pressure. Now, the flip side is this. Canada in 2015. Potentially, a contender. I think they were a step below U.S. and Japan and England and maybe even France in that tournament. I thought they were not quite there in terms of their overall quality, but they really struggled with being at home. The pressure, I think, overwhelmed them a bit. France, in my opinion, this French team for 2019 is a better team than Canada was in 2015. I think they're in a better situation to handle the pressure, but that's the biggest question about them coming into this is, can they handle it? The other thing about France is you're set up with the bracket. If things go the way as expected, France and the United States in the quarterfinals. The French are 2-0-1 in their last 3 meetings against the U.S.
And you had mentioned at the beginning of the show how this is probably one of the deepest tournaments that we have. And for those that didn't get the chance to listen to our World Cup preview show, which is available on the Soccer Down Here app, available on iOS and Android, also on Spreaker and various other platforms as well. We have, all right, so we agreed on our final 8 teams. And a case can be made for each and every one of them, I would think, to at least, if not get past that round of 8, to make some noise if they make it into the Final 4. Norway, England, France and the U.S., Australia, Canada, Germany, and the Netherlands. I look at that group and I'm like, yep. I could make a case for each one of those teams to get out of that quarterfinal and make some noise in the semifinals to get to that last match. That's the way I viewed this tournament. And Kelly Francis, again this morning, is pounding the drum for her dark horse, Jamaica.
Okay, big. I didn't expect to go to Jamaica just yet, but all right, we can go there. Jamaica starts the tournament against Brazil. 9:30 on Sunday. That is a potential upset match right there. Brazil has lost their last 9 coming into the tournament.
Oh.
They have greatly, greatly struggled coming into this thing. They're in Group C, which is not an easy group. Australia, who I think gets over the hump, gets to the World Cup final this year. They have been a quarterfinalist in 07, in 11, in 15. They've not been able to get to the semis. I think Sam Kerr, best player in the world right now, and I think Sam Kerr can carry them there. They're going to have to get a little bit better defensively. That's your number 1 team in Group C.
Yeah.
Brazil would be the team that you would think would be number 2, but I don't think that's a guarantee with their current form. Italy has come in after a really good qualification run, and they haven't played a ton of top talent since qualifying. So are they going to be able to make the jump? But Serie A, Italian clubs have invested more and more in the women's game. Italy won't be a pushover. And then there's Jamaica. This is their first tournament. Look, they have nothing to lose here. They're going to play with complete freedom. They're going to play with a lot of pizzazz. They play with a lot of speed, too. And they have a player who can score goals up top in Khadija Bunny Shaw. Just signed a deal with Nike, was a star at the University of Tennessee, 19 goals in the qualifying cycle. If Bunny Shaw gets goals for this team, they're going to pull an upset somewhere along the way. I don't think they're going to get out of the group. I think it's just a little bit more difficult than they're ready for. But I think they're going to be the team that potentially captures everyone's imagination. And it's not just Bunny Shaw. There's another one, Jody Brown, who just turned 17, plays high school ball in Florida. It's an exciting team to see the growth of the women's game. And Jamaica coming in completely free, no pressure, can run for days against a Brazilian team that is feeling pressure, that wants to send Marta, because it is more than likely her last tournament, wants to send Formiga out. They want to send them out in a good way, but they're not playing well coming into this. This feels like it could be an upset special on Sunday morning, 9:30, Jamaica and Brazil.
And for information purposes only, I had Italy coming out as the 3 in that group. But, with the way that we're looking at Brazil, Italy could be the 2 and Brazil could be the 3. But I think that Jamaica will make some noise. And I think that they're going to be an absolute hoot to watch. I think that they are just they're going to try to run people out of the building, and it's going to be fun with what we know about them offensively. So I think that if you're not going to get up at 7:00 to see the other half of Group C in Australia and Italy, make sure that you lock in Brazil and Jamaica at 9:30, because that one's going to be fun.
Well, no, you should get up and watch Sam Kerr because she's that good. So get up for the 7:00 game.
DVR it.
No, don't listen to John. Get up at 7:00 and watch Australia and Italy, because that should be a fun one. I want to see how Italy responds to the jump in competition level than what they've been used to. And I want to see Sam Kerr because she's one of the most exciting players in the world. Sunday is a perfect morning for women's soccer. Australia, Italy at 7, Brazil, Jamaica 9:30, and then you get the big match with a lot of implications, England and Scotland at noon. Scotland's first ever Women's World Cup match. It's not a typical team that's coming in with their first World Cup and they're happy to be there. Scotland's a team that can get to the knockout round. And they would love nothing more than to take points off of England in Game 1, because England is a potential winner of this tournament. They have that type of level. They were semifinalists last time around. They're trying to get to a final. They won the She Believes Cup earlier this year, and I think that gives them a lot of confidence coming in. They had a little bit of a slip-up in a pre-tournament friendly against New Zealand. I think England is a contender for the championship, but Scotland will be loaded to take points off of them in Game 1.
And I have England winning it all in the final. and knocking off Germany to do so. My 3 were England, Germany, and France winning the third place game over Australia. So that was how it ended. So that's the end of the Women's World Cup preview from our perspective. I had England, Germany, and France, and you disagreed.
Yeah, I had France beating Australia in the final, and I had England beating the Netherlands in the third place game. I went with a couple dark horses in Australia and the Netherlands to make some noise. We'll talk about the Dutch as we get a little bit later. They'll start tournament play next week. I asked a question on Twitter, and feel free to chime in on the thread from last night, who you thought was going to win, who you picked for Golden Boot, who would be the favorite underdog, and who would be the biggest disappointment. And I went with Brazil as the biggest disappointment. I still think they can get to the knockout round, but it's going to be very difficult for them because of the form they're coming in with. I think Jamaica will be everybody's favorite underdog, although there's some others that could be pushing for that. I have Sam Kerr as the Golden Boot winner because I think if Australia is going to get where I'm expecting them to and get to that final, it's going to take a boatload of goals from Sam Kerr because defensively, they're not a lockdown defensive team. And that's what's fun about this tournament to me if you're looking for an overriding storyline. I feel like a lot of the top teams and the teams that are going to go far in this are attack-minded. You don't have a ton of just shut-down defenses in this tournament. Australia, they're going to have to score a ton of goals to get to a final. The Dutch, maybe the best front 3 in the tournament. The U.S. will have something to say about that. Another one that, hey, they're a lot better going forward than they are defending. The French, electric going forward. England, maybe a little more balanced, but very good going forward with a player like Fran Kirby. It feels like a very open tournament, both in the sense that you have a lot of different teams that can win it. It feels like an open tournament in the way that the game will be played. I think it's going to be a fun tournament with a lot of goals, and you're going to learn a lot about where the overall level of the women's game is. Now, our Friday flashback question, and we'll start getting to the Twitters after this. Friday flashback question is your favorite women's soccer memories. If it's a game, if it's a player, if it's a goal, if it's all of the above, share those with us on Twitter at @SoccerDownHere. I think there's going to be a lot of new memories made this summer, but mine, one of my favorite goals that I've ever seen in a women's match wasn't even a World Cup match. It was U.S. and England in a friendly in 1997. It was that good of a goal that I remember. It was at San Jose Spartan Stadium. And Mia Hamm took off on a run, cut defenders back and forth, and then ripped a left-footed blast. Mia Hamm was that player that, when I first started really following the women's game, that I'm just like, good grief. I mean, you get the combination of speed, talent, swagger, and a different kind of swagger because she was pretty shy and didn't like being the focal point of things, but she could put the team on her back. Mia Hamm was that good of a player, just an unbelievable talent. And that goal is one that I always flash back to. Other than Mia, I mean, I think if you grew up in the U.S., like there's so many different players to choose from. Two that for me get kind of lost in the shuffle. Cindy Parlow, who played here for the Atlanta Beat. Cindy Parlow Cone now. Starting to rise up the coaching ranks. Recently inducted into the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame. Unbelievably talented player overall, and I think a lot of people zeroed in as a number 9 with her height, that great in the air, and she was, but so good with the ball at her feet, and she was a big part of some really good Atlanta Beat teams in the original WUSA with her and Soon Win and Homari Sawa combining going forward. Those were some really fun teams to watch. Another one up top that gets lost in the shuffle when you talk about goal scorers for the U.S., because there's been so many, is Tiffany Milbrett. Tiffany Milbrett was just a little spark plug up top and constantly found herself in good positions and scored so many big goals for the U.S., but she gets left out sometimes of the discussion when you talk about the Mia Hamms and the Abby Wambachs and the Alex Morgans. Tiffany Milbritt's one of the all-time great U.S. forwards, and she was a really fun player to watch. Who are some of your favorite players, favorite moments, favorite goals in the women's game?
Well, let's see. Obviously, the Chastain PK and the call from JP Dellacamera. Then I've got the Rapinoe to Wambach goal, where Megan Rapinoe just dropped. Is if you're dropping more than a dime, can you drop a quarter or a half a dollar?
That might give you a concussion. You're dropping a dime.
Because
heavy.
I mean, that was just what Megan Rapinoe did, just absolute perfection there. And then Carly Lloyd from center circle in the last World Cup. Then for me, moments going to Foxborough to cover the Atlanta beat in the WUSA Championship game. For me, that was that to me was a treat. I think I might have been the only Atlanta media person there from a television perspective, but and basically having free reign. So stuff like that for me. And then if you want to get into, for me, it's just as much about the W League and going over to Adams Stadium and covering that as well. So, like I said, my memories when it comes to it are all over the place. But when it comes to goals, it was those three. When it comes to the WUSA, it was that. But it all started for me with the run with the originals. And I remember being in a clubhouse after completing a round of golf and watching that World Cup final, and there were a bunch of middle-aged men who were completely and totally engrossed by a women's soccer match and looking around and seeing all these guys just staring up at monitors in a golf clubhouse. I thought that was a cool moment for me to sit there and say, well, look at this. It's about time. And I was a little more colorful with my metaphors.
Clarification.
Yeah.
That was not the originals. 1991 was your first Women's World Cup, and the U.S. won that one. And it was a tournament that you didn't really get a chance to see. I think I saw the final on tape delay.
It on tape delay?
Like Sports Channel America or something. But the U.S. went to China, won that tournament. Nobody knew about it. If you read Soccer America, you knew about it. There's a few different documentaries about it, and Grant Wall's done a great flashback podcast of some of the things around that team. And those were truly the originals, where they were not making hardly any money. They were doing it for the love of the game and growing it, and you don't have 99 if you don't have 91, and you don't have 91 if you don't have some of the people who put in the time in the late 80s when it was completely an afterthought. It's come a long way really quickly, and there's still a lot of room to grow. This tournament, I feel like, can kick things up a whole nother level faster than we've seen any other Women's World Cup have the ability to do, and not just in the U.S., but worldwide. That's why we're talking a lot about it, because it's a big deal. And in my opinion, out of the big three tournaments this summer, with the Gold Cup and Copa America, the Women's World Cup is the most open one, with more teams that have a chance to win it, and I think it will have the most goals per match in it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for the neutral to watch outside of your teams that you're pulling for. Let's take a quick break here, come back on the other side. More Friday Flashback, more tweets from you guys after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
The debate rages on. If you follow Mike Conti 99 on Twitter, he has been, I think, debating and standing his ground for his favorite goal in U.S. women's national team history. You want to state your case, Mike?
Well, first of all, I think it's in United States national team history, men's or women's.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I know that's going to open the door for some Landon Donovan people to come at me, and I totally respect it. But Rapinoe had to be so precise on that cross. And Jared Smith and I were just going back and forth on Twitter. Where was Rapinoe when she struck that? I mean, she's on the touch line at
She was in Peru.
45 yards from goal.
Had to be. And, I mean, puts it right on the plate. And Wambach then, it's a more difficult finish than it looks because you've got the goalkeeper kind of inserting herself into her field of vision. The cross was maybe just ever so slightly wide of the frame, so Abby had to redirect it. My thing is this. That's the final kick of the game. If Rapinoe puts that cross out, or if Abby doesn't put that on frame, the game is over, and USA is out. And I would point out that a Penn Stater, Allie Krieger, had to make a penalty in the shootout to still get the U.S. to advance out of that little conundrum.
Yeah,
that
I knew
they
that
were
one
in.
was coming.
Well, I mean, if you want to win, add a Penn Stater. That's all I have to say. But anyhow, I mean, look, no disrespect to Carly Lloyd. That 50-yard chip that she had was a spectacular goal against a team that Jonathan Pierce of the BBC correctly said was playing defense like children in 2015. Obviously, Chastain making the penalty against China. That's such an iconic moment. Not just in soccer, women's soccer history, but really in women's sports history. And that whole 99 World Cup was magic in every way, with the attendance and the attention that was paid to it across the country. That was a big, big step for the growth of soccer in this country. But no disrespect to Landon Donovan. No disrespect. I know a lot of people are putting Jermaine Jones' golazo against Portugal from 2014 on there. My response to that is the U.S. didn't even win that match. It was a beautiful goal. It was an amazing goal, but it was a group game that the USA did not win. If Rapinoe does not put that cross from a bazillion miles away exactly on the plate, it's over. And the U.S. is out of that World Cup, and instead they go to the final. So I'm going to dig in on that. It's a testament to the women's national team that it's not a clear cut, number one, because there's a lot of very, very good history that this women's national team has built since 1991. But I'm digging in on that. I'm a big, big fan of Abby Wambach. And the thing I remember most about that goal was on ESPN, obviously. And I remember LeBron James was tweeting about it as it happened. I mean, there were a lot of non-soccer people that were really, really engaged with that match. That was one incredibly well-played match, very dramatic, and a testament to Brazil and how well they played in that match, too. For as much as Brandi Chastain did to put women's soccer on the map, I really feel like that Sunday afternoon, that USA-Brazil match, was also very, very important to building the credibility of the women's game to what it is right now.
And I'm going to go full hipster, and I'm going to turn over the apple cart completely. Because the best match, the most memorable. Let's put it this way, because best can get kind of weird. The most memorable match a U.S. women's national team has played for me, and maybe outside of the Algeria match in the World Cup, outside of the Germany World Cup quarterfinal, where I feel like it was the best U.S. performance.
I know what you're going to say, Jason. Can I guess?
Go ahead and guess.
The 2012 Olympics against Canada?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good one, too.
U.S.-Canada Olympic semifinal at Old Trafford. I've never had the feeling, and the back and forth of it, I've never had the feeling. The Germany game didn't give me that because it felt like the U.S. was just running into a brick wall. Played great, best performance from a U.S. men's national team ever. They couldn't get the job done against a German team that went on to the final. The Algeria game, it felt like kind of a meh game until the very end, and you have the magic moment with Donovan's goal. Even that game in the World Cup the year before against Brazil with the magic moment at the end that sends it to penalties. This one has a magic moment at the end that wins it in the 122nd minute, and you had to keep coming back in this game. The just twists and turns, I felt like I was going to end up on the floor watching this thing because it finishes 4-3. Canada was 1-0 up at halftime. You had to come back. You get a penalty that was kind of crazy. Wambach ties it up at 3-3, and it goes to extra time, and Alex Morgan off a Heather O'Reilly cross in the 122nd minute. It felt like the reaction to this was just everybody on Twitter with capital letters and exclamation marks and question marks and nothing in like true written word. It was the craziest match in that type of moment that I can remember.
Yeah, that was absolutely so thrilling and so dramatic. I think the thing that I got stuck on about 2012 is that there was a little bit of toxicity with that team and with Hope Solo in particular going after the TV commentators in a very public way. And I got a little bit turned off by some of that behavior. I thought it was a little bit unnecessary. All of that being said, as far as a dramatic match for 120 minutes, yeah, no doubt. I mean, you had 7 goals in that match. What was that Brazil match I'm talking about? 1-1 going to penalties, I think. So, yeah, and it was at Old Trafford.
That added to it. Arlo White on the commentary was outstanding. He was just losing his mind.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's absolutely right there. And you could nominate that Alex Morgan goal absolutely as the best.
It's in there.
Goal that the women's national team has ever scored. It is absolutely in that discussion. So now you're getting me fired up for Tuesday.
I know. I'm fired up for the whole tournament, Mike. To me, when you look at the tournaments this summer, Gold Cup, Mexico clear-cut favorite. U.S. has to get to a final. They're probably a favorite to get to the final. But Mexico, clear-cut favorite to win it. Maybe you get a Cinderella story like a Jamaica or a Costa Rica, a very outside chance of a Honduras. Copa America, Brazil at home, Argentina, Colombia, Uruguay, it feels like those 4 are a cut above everybody else. The Women's World Cup? I mean, France, Germany, England, United States, Australia, the Dutch are the defending European champions. Canada is in the mix. Spain could emerge. You've got a tier A that is huge, and you've got a tier B that can pull upsets on anybody. it feels like it's going to be a wild summer in France.
Yeah, and on top of it, you've also got the U20 World Cup kind of winding towards its climax, and the U.S. is still alive. And I'll be curious if they can finally get over that hump of making the quarterfinal and get to the last four finally, and maybe even make a final. How much attention are we going to start paying to that? Because that'll be in the midst of everything that you've just talked about. So from the standpoint of a wide open tournament, absolutely, I lean towards the Women's World Cup for entertainment value. But as far as patriotism and pride is concerned, if the U.S. U20s can get to the last four or to a final, I really hope that's something that people will start waking up to in more of the mainstream realm. I mean, the three of us obviously are pretty engaged in it, but I would like to see more attention cast to that in more of a mainstream realm. And it might work out timing-wise where that can happen, where Stanley Cup final might be over on Sunday. The NBA finals might be over on Monday. So aside from the U.S. Open, you could have that U20 World Cup final kind of stand alone a week from now as something that we're going to pay a lot of attention to.
And Jason, did you want to hit the either the air horn or the breaking news sounder?
Uh-oh.
We don't have it on the new setup, so... Dun, 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 dun. Go ahead.
Tony Annan signs a contract extension with Atlanta United.
That is the least surprising news of the day.
That should be a lifetime extension. I mean, the job that he has done building the academy system from the ground up, and now with the major feather in their cap that they have with the U14s winning the Man City Cup, that's a no-brainer. I think it's bad news for the rest of the clubs domestically and perhaps otherwise in the world, where now Tony's not going to be available for a while because he's just done an absolutely brilliant job. And I sense he's an Atlanta lifer anyway from this point forward. But to reward him for the work he's done, that's absolutely a necessary move by the club, and I'm glad they've done that.
And let's see, right now, Ukraine still leading Colombia 1-0 in the 43rd in the U20s. So that's where we are right now. Let's see. Mike, we were getting into the discussion about Vegas and MLS.
Mm-hmm.
And Tofka came in this morning and he says, thinking out loud and way too far in advance, if Foley gets an expansion franchise, there are some reasons to think he may go with something like FC Vegas Knights, keep the black and silver colors shared with the Raiders, and it gives you a Knights versus Lights rivalry.
His hockey team's also called the Knights. That could make a lot of sense. Or
cross-branding.
You could cross-brand, or he might just want to go in a completely different direction. I'm not sure. It's interesting. I saw something out there on Twitter, and I don't know how legitimate it is, where there's now a discussion about a 25,000-seat retractable roof stadium for Foley's potential expansion entrant into MLS.
I think that's the other group, because there's two groups, and this is where it's complicated. Like, the news broke last weekend that a group was going to buy the Las Vegas Lights and had been at least granted preliminary permission to build that stadium, the 25,000-seat retractable roof, where Cashman Field is.
Okay.
Then the Foley side is partnering with the Raiders Stadium to play there. So there's competing groups for a Vegas MLS team, which kicks it up to a whole nother level of crazy.
But that's good. I mean, hopefully that pushes the two groups to, maybe it even pushes them together where they can work together somehow to make it the best possible bid. If there's no competition in the bidding process, I think sometimes you can see corners get cut. I don't see Foley as being that kind of guy, but the fact that there are multiple groups interested in MLS in one city is just another sign of the health of the league that we've talked about many, many times. So that's very, very encouraging. I think, again, the broader discussion will be, how much further do we go beyond 30 teams, and how do you make it work from a scheduling standpoint? But like I said with you guys on Wednesday, if you have wealthy owners that want to come in and do it the right way and make their club big and play in first-class facilities and be willing to spend the kind of money it takes to bring in players that will put a compelling product out on the pitch, the rest of the league will benefit. And it will almost create an arms race among the ambitious clubs, which will do nothing other than make the fans win. At better soccer. Better soccer will lead to more TV money. More TV money will lead to better soccer, and the circle of life continues.
Yeah, so, and we like circle of life continuing. That's good stuff.
So I think it's a total win. As far as what to call the teams, I don't know if you want to necessarily abandon the heritage of the Lights. The Lights have kind of carved out a kooky little fun niche that they've been fascinating to watch from afar. From a credibility standpoint, they've done things maybe a little bit unconventionally, maybe a little bit on the goofy side, but maybe that's something you embrace. Vegas is an interesting town in what you have to do to successfully market a team. So do what it takes. But I wouldn't mind embracing that history. It's been fun to watch from here. I know that.
If they want to include llamas in it, I'm okay with it. Or alpacas or
llamas and Elvi on motorcycles.
Yeah, I mean that's what it takes out there, right? Like a halftime shotgun wedding of 5,000 Elvis impersonators or something like that. Go for it. It's a lot better than some of the other halftime shows we've seen around the league this year.
Oof,
this is true.
And Tafka says also think about the TV coverage that's going on right now when it comes to having a local MLS team, nonstop soccer, U17 World Cup, U20 World Cup, the Olympics, World Cup qualifiers, 2018 World Cup, 2019 Women's World Cup, MLS Open Cup, CONCACAF Champions League, and USL, all heavily televised and available. He says it's crazy compared to just 10 years ago. I'd say it's crazy compared to a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the days where, this wasn't even that long ago, where the U.S. was playing Mexico in the Azteca in a World Cup qualifier. You couldn't find it because Telemundo was not relinquishing the English language rights, and they put it on.
They put it on Mundos.
Mundos, yes.
They were trying to do a Spanglish channel.
Yeah, and they got like Phil Shane to call it from a studio or something like that. And that was not long ago. I think that was 2009.
I remember watching that. It was 2009 because Charlie Davies scored the goal that gave the U.S. the lead at the Azteca, and then Mexico came back. But we were organizing a get-together to watch that at Stats, and it took forever to find Mundos. And eventually they did. Like they got it for us. But, yeah, Mundos. I remember that one.
Yeah, that was a one-match experiment. Fortunately, that did not last. But, yeah, I mean – guys, we're living in a really fortunate time right now to be a soccer fan from a media standpoint. And obviously, having so many games available through stream is a big part of this. But heck, I remember even as recently as I think 1998, not all World Cup games were televised in the United States. Most of them were, but not all. I don't think that fully changed until 2002. And I remember even as recently as 2006, the ABC World Cup games didn't have a pregame show. They came on at 9 a.m. and the ball had already been kicked. So, look, this is a testament to the soccer public demanding more and supporting the advertisers and the sponsors that support this programming. That's a big, big part of it. But, I mean, John, you're right. That comment is totally spot on. We're in a really, really fun time.
Yeah, every cycle's taken a big jump. And, the growth of MLS, that's your day-to-day. But the World Cup cycles, and that's why it was a huge miss for the U.S. not to be in it in the last time around, and it's something that just can't happen. And I think it has the same effect for the women now, too, and I think you're also starting to see some overlap. And that's maybe the unique thing about soccer compared to other sports is you get a Women's World Cup that I think a lot of people are going to be talking about and discussing on a pretty similar way as they consume and discuss the Men's World Cup. That only benefits the game as a whole across the board.
What is the most watched soccer match on television in this nation's history.
That's the final from 2015.
Exactly
US-Japan.
right. Exactly right. I mean, that pulled World Series caliber ratings for Fox. And we've talked about it. I think the gender gap between the men's game and the women's game is very, very narrow. And this speaks to how important it is to have a robust U.S. men's national team, because the way you're going to get casuals watching these tournaments is if the USA is a substantial threat to win. But you're going to watch these Women's World Cup games, and you're not going to see too much of a difference, a dramatic difference from what we see week to week with the men's game. It's a very, very high-quality soccer from a technical standpoint. They're going to play with a lot of passion. I hope the French public does their part in filling the stadiums. I think that's a big part of it, too, creating those atmospheres. But it's going to be a really, really fun tournament. And I can't wait for July the 7th, the Women's World Cup final, potentially with the U.S. in it, we hope, followed by Atlanta United Red Bulls. And it's amazing to think it's only a month away.
What's your take as we finish up, Mike, with the Women's World Cup final that day? And league games are different. You know, we saw it last year with Atlanta United following up the Men's World Cup final. But the Gold Cup final and the Copa America final are on the same day. Now, they're not at the same time. They're in the evening. But what's your take on CONCACAF, for example, saying that, oops, we made a mistake in scheduling it on the same day as the Women's World Cup final?
Really unfortunate. And why can't CONCACAF have the Gold Cup final on a Monday night?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be better.
Yeah, I mean, now I understand with CONMEBOL, it's a little bit different down there, and you have some time zones in CONMEBOL that are far enough east where playing a final late at night could be hard, could be tricky for some of your eastern time zones. But for CONCACAF, you have a 9 p.m. Monday night kick between Mexico and, I mean, let's hope it's the U.S.
The audience would be ridiculous.
Right,
It'd be better.
Right.
It'd be better than on a Sunday night.
I totally, and you stand alone.
Mm-hmm.
You have no competition. It would be July 8th. I mean, there's no NBA Finals. There's no Stanley Cup. There's nothing. I think that's a huge miss for CONCACAF. I think, it's obviously too late to go back and fix that. But it's something that I hope they look at in future years. Quite frankly, this might be a discussion down the road for FIFA about potentially playing a World Cup final on a Monday in prime time. The issue, again, there is, you do that, it could be Tuesday at 2 a.m. in Asia, and it could be, very, very late at night in Europe. So it's a little harder. But for CONCACAF, where you're playing all the matches in North America, this seems to be a very correctable mistake. I just think it's unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate that CONMEBOL put the final on that Sunday as well. Delay the tournaments for a week if you have to, but I think it's just one more unfortunate sign that in many parts of this world, that Women's World Cup final is just not seen as the major, major event that it is.
Yeah, it's a little awkward. I agree with you, though. CONCACAF would benefit from a Monday final because right now they're the latest of the games on Sunday night. So just judging from the Sunday schedule as it is, if you're here in Atlanta and you watch the Women's World Cup final, let's say the U.S. makes it to that, and you're watching that and consuming it, and then you're going to the Benz or you're watching the final at the Benz as part of the watch party, you have the huge Atlanta Red Bulls match. Then there's a Copa America final. Then the Gold Cup final. You're going to be exhausted.
Yeah, and quite frankly, the Gold Cup is I think some people still see it as a bit of a little brother tournament.
It is. I
So,
hope it's not one day, but it is.
But right now it is. You know what an easy way to changing that is? Move it to a night where you can maximize the television audience and make it the big thing going on that day and try to do something a little bit differently. The Champions League seems to do pretty okay with having midweek semifinals. So playing a Gold Cup final on a Monday night seems to me that is not going to be a deal breaker from a television standpoint by any stretch. In fact, I think it only enhances it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I guess we probably should talk a little bit before we go about the Open Cup and our.
I thought we were going to talk about
there.
National Donut Day.
Yeah,
National
that is
Donut
today.
Day is always good.
Yeah, no wonder the drive-through line at Dunkin' was so long. But
I think Krispy Kreme's giving away donuts, if I'm not mistaken.
Dunkin'. I think they're giving away a donut.
I might go get a donut from each.
Yeah, and I'm going to get donuts to console myself for this Open Cup debacle.
Yeah.
It's really unfortunate. We haven't really said anything publicly yet because I do know that the club is trying every last way to negotiate a way to avoid this.
Our fingers are crossed, but it's not looking likely.
It doesn't look good. Bottom line is U.S. Soccer made an arrangement with ESPN for all broadcast rights to U.S. Open Cup, which apparently includes radio, which means we're not, as it looks right now, we're not going to be able to broadcast the match on Tuesday. It's very unfortunate. We're very, very disappointed. I think it's unfortunate because ESPN is not planning on providing radio coverage of the event. So if no one's doing radio, why would you not let your clubs do the radio on their own behalf? I don't think it takes away from ESPN's audience, but that's the deal that U.S. Soccer signed, and that's what we've got to live by. We were not made aware of it until the middle of this past week.
I don't think anybody was, honestly. I mean, we saw Gordon Stevenson from the Red Bulls tweet out that they can't do it, and it didn't seem like they knew about it either.
Yeah, and in defense of the club, why would you even think that would be an issue? I mean, ESPN's not doing radio. So, like I said, I mean, you got to give the club a lot of credit. I know Matt Moore and Tim Zalaski are working on every possible angle to enable us to do it, but it does not look good right now. Like I said, I'm extremely disappointed. I love this tournament. I would have been a lot of fun for us to do. That does not mean that you still shouldn't support the tournament and support Atlanta United in the tournament. I just think it's counterintuitive. I mean, I'll make an editorial comment. I think it's unfortunate that, U.S. Soccer went into this deal with ESPN Plus to increase the visibility of the tournament. And it has done that for all rounds. That's very, very, that's something they have accomplished. But it's disappointing to me that we were ready to do a radio call of the match on site in Charleston. And instead they're going to have off-site television announcers call the match on a web stream. I just think that's unfortunate, but that's what they want to do, and we have to respect that.
Yeah, fingers crossed that there's some kind of a last-minute solution, but it's not looking good, and it's nothing that Atlanta United can do. It's not their competition. No. It's not Major League Soccer's competition. It's nothing to do with the radio station. I mean, plans were made, commitments were made, and you don't have the rights because it is a U.S. Soccer event, and they have sold those rights to ESPN. And I'm with you. They've absolutely increased the awareness of this tournament. It is night and day from where it's been. This feels like a step backwards in that regard because there are clubs, and we're not the only one. I mean, the Red Bulls were planning on a radio broadcast. I'm sure there were others.
Yeah.
Planning on radio broadcasts for their fans, and now they just can't. And that's
and my thing is if ESPN were doing radio broadcasts and providing radio broadcasts to the clubs to distribute, then I have no problem with it because you're still going to have a radio broadcast. To me, you're shutting out radio by doing this. But look, we have to respect it. Jason's right. The club is doing and has done everything to try to change their minds. It is absolutely nothing to do with the club at all. It is nothing to do with the radio station. Believe me, we wanted to have the programming. You can only hear so much John Chuckery on a weeknight. So, we'll just keep it moving, and we'll be back with you on the 26th. And pray for a miracle, and maybe we'll be with you on Tuesday. But either way, support Atlanta United in this tournament. This is a very special trophy, a very special tournament. And, I might be watching with sound on mute on Tuesday, but I am going to watch.
Yeah, we'll be consuming it one way or another and talking about it on Wednesday. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
Okay, have a donut, guys. Enjoy it.
Yes.
You good?
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky and Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, June 7th edition. It's Friday Flashback edition because there's no Atlanta United match this weekend. It's kind of weird. We haven't had this in a while. The Friday Flashback question is your favorite moments in women's soccer, whether it's a player, whether it's a goal, whether it's a match or a team. Your favorite memories of women's soccer as we are a few hours away from the kickoff of the Women's World Cup this afternoon. France and South Korea. I don't think it's a pushover for France here. South Korea has made the knockout round before. They're trying to make a jump in their program. They're going to test the French, but I think ultimately the French will be riding that home team emotion and see this one out and probably looking at like a 2-0 or a 3-1 win.
Yeah, I'm in there. I think that the host will probably be a little jittery, probably first 20, 25 minutes or so, and then I think they'll settle into it. It's probably going to be 1-0 at the break, and then they'll add at least one more in the second half, and they'll get their two goal margin to finish things up for full points.
Couple bits of news before we get into the Twitters. Last night, New York City FC set some MLS history. In a weird way. They became the first team to concede 2 own goals and still win the match. They won 5-2. The own goals really didn't matter. But 2 own goals they conceded, so they scored all 7. It was one of those nights for FC Cincinnati. It was a bad one. I mean, Cincinnati's just hired their new general manager. It's going to take a minute. This shows how important it is to plan coming into the league. If you don't think Nashville's taking some serious notes about the lumps that Cincinnati's taking right now, yeah, I would imagine that plans have been, some have been crossed out, some have been upgraded, some have been changed. It's not easy. In some ways, it's harder to come in moving up a level. Minnesota had that challenge. Montreal, I remember them specifically having the challenge in 2011 in the NASL, and then in 2012 going into MLS. Like, it's hard because you're almost a split personality that last year in the lower division, knowing you're going up. It affects your team that year, and it affects your decision-making because you're not starting from a completely clean slate. You could, but you're not because you have players that you're attached to. You have players that you think can make the jump. It's, I think, more awkward to start that way. And Cincinnati is showing how difficult it can be this year. I don't think they came in as prepared as Montreal did. I don't think they're coming in as prepared as Nashville will be. And it's showing in a big way. They've got to start making some changes to have a better second half of the season. I don't care how many points they get, but 5-2 on the road after a lot of bad results. It's a bad feeling right now in Cincinnati. Bad news for NYCFC. James Sands, their talented teenager, broke his arm. He's going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks. You could see it when he was on the ground. There was a lump in a spot that there should not be a lump in his arm. Yeah, it wasn't that bad, but it didn't look good. And Ian Joy spotted it straight away on the TV broadcast. Some other stuff around the league. Columbus's new stadium, reports in the Columbus Dispatch, have it opening at the earliest in July of 2021. So Columbus will likely, and I would imagine they wouldn't do what Portland's done. I think they're going to have to start the season at Mapfre Stadium before transitioning into their new downtown stadium in the 2021 season, just not at the beginning. And you're getting continued rumors out of Argentina about the LA Galaxy's interest in Boca Juniors' Cristian Pavón. The latest, I believe this is out of ESPN Argentina, is that they are prepared to offer $12 million. Now, Boca wanted a lot more than that, but I think Boca wants to make a move now. They don't want to see that value decrease if you have another, not even bad season, just not season like it was in going into the 2018 World Cup for Pavón. I wonder if they'll take it. If they take it, the Galaxy are going to have to make some other moves because they have Zlatan on a DP deal. They have Jonathan Dos Santos on a DP deal. They have Roman Alessandrini, who was out injured until, I believe, September, on a designated player deal. Are you going to be able to put him on a season-ending injury list and write him off for the season and open up that spot? Not 100% sure of that. Are you going to be able to make a move for one of your 3 designated players in the summer transfer window that would get one of them off of your roster to add Pavón? You're going to have to get creative. And they tried to get creative in a bad way going into the season with Giovanni Dos Santos, and the league said, nuh-uh, we're not having that. So what do they do here? I have no idea. There are rumors, too, and we've seen them. I do not think they are nearly as substantiated as some people have made them out to be, about San Lorenzo's interest in bringing Tito Villalba back. And it's a unique situation because Tito is not just a player who ended up at San Lorenzo and liked his time there. He grew up across the street from the stadium. I mean, he is San Lorenzo through and through. So I get that there would be a little more heft to these types of rumors, but right now they really do feel like just that. Rumors. I mean, it's San Lorenzo would be interested in bringing him back. Well, duh. Does that mean something's going to happen? Not necessarily. I think there's been some conclusions jumped to a little too early here because it feels very early in any process for anything like that to be a possibility for the summer window.
Yeah, and just right now, keep in mind that rumors are just that. And watch your sourcing and just take everything at face value. Don't read in too much into anything, but keep an eye on who is saying these kinds of things. Because if it's someone who just has 38 Twitter followers, that's different from someone who has 12,500. So just watch where you're getting your information when you're getting into silly season and transfers and things like that.
All right. What do we have on the silly Twitters right now?
Okay. Well, before we get into silly Twitters, right now, for information for juice box purposes only, the France women right now are at -700. The over-under is 2.5, and the over is listed at -154. So that's where we are with that. And there's also Euro 2020 qualifying this afternoon. All the soccer today.
Well, World Cup 2022 qualifying has actually started in Asia.
Yep. Bhutan and Guam. And for those who listen to the Greenville Triumph Weekly, we get to catch up with starting goalkeeper and Greenville Triumph keeper Dallas J last week on the show to talk about that.
Yeah, it's
and that was a trip.
It's crazy that we've already seen
10 plane segments for Dallas J to get from Greenville to Bhutan to Guam and back to Greenville after both legs occur when it comes to Asia qualifying. But
your biggest results thus far in World Cup qualifying is Malaysia posted a 7-1 win today over Timor-Leste.
And let's see, Bhutan and Guam, I think, are 185 and 193 on the grid. So that's what you're getting at. Daniel Price has apparently been talked into going to his first.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out what grid you were talking about. I didn't know if you were talking about latitudes or longitudes or rankings in FIFA.
No. Rankings. FIFA rankings 185 and 193.
Yeah, Bhutan
That's
got the
Bhutan
1-0 win
and Guam.
over Guam as well, unfortunately,
Yes,
for
correct.
our Guam friends.
Daniel Price has been talked into going to his first ATO UTD 2 match tonight against the Baby Red Bulls.
Excellent.
Any recommendations for the stadium or any other advice? Looking forward to hopefully a clear and dry night. I doubt that's going to happen. And perhaps after the match, he says, will my wife and I get to meet the legends of the SDH cast of at Longshoe and at OSG Nelson?
Yes, we hang out after the match before we get kicked out of the stadium at the back of the booth that we're in, which is the S booth. So when you're looking, when you turn around and you look back at the press boxes, you see a K booth, an S booth, and a U booth. We're in the S. We're in the middle. So we just hang out outside of that, behind it, out on the concourse after the match. So, yeah, come up and say, hey, please.
Kefsi, favorite moment.
Hold on, weather-wise. Let's actually get a weather update because it's a little dicey. Actually, tonight, well, let me change it to Kennesaw because
I've heard 90% chance of storms.
Yeah, it's not that for where I am currently located. So in the city, it's not looking quite as bad. Hold on. This
Kennesaw has been known to be a microclimate.
It has been. 8 o'clock, scattered thunderstorms, precipitation chance of 39%. It's around 40 most of the day and into the evening. So 9 o'clock, it's 60%. That's not good because that would be late in the second half. And then it's 65 at 10 o'clock, 67. Yeah,
bring your rain gear.
Hope. Well, I'm not even worried about the rain gear because we're talking thunderstorms. Bring the rain gear, yes, because you want to stay dry. But we better hope that the storm slows down because if we don't get the game in before the scheduled conclusion, we're going to be dodging lightning bolts for a while.
Yes, so bring your rain gear and perhaps a book.
Books get wet.
Yes. Kepsi on the Twitters. Favorite moment has to be seeing the women's national team in the Dome in 2014 against Russia. First U.S. game live for me overall. Solidified my appreciation of Megan Rapinoe's game. I'm hoping that this summer I have one that includes rowdy fans at Midway Pub during a knockout game. #Friday Flashback.
Yes, Midway Pub's doing some awesome stuff during the Women's World Cup, so definitely check them out over in East Atlanta. They're doing a passport. I believe it's $10 to get the passport. Proceeds are benefiting Soccer in the Streets. They're doing some other great fundraisers as well. So if you're looking for a spot, whether it's a U.S. game or just another Women's World Cup game, check out Midway Pub over in East Atlanta. They very committed, and they're one that maybe sometimes gets kind of lost in the shuffle of all the great pubs that show matches all over the city. Midway, great stuff, great food over there too, by the way.
And Sam Stejkal, we discussed in the opening of the show about the men's national team. Stejkal says we can talk tactics, roster choices, individual performances, or we can talk about what matters. The USMNT pool is weaker than it's been in quite some time, and that's the header. And from that Stejkal article, Trains wanted to know, is there too much hype on the U20s to save this country? Expectations seem to have been too much for Carlton already, and who's next?
Man. Trains, I want you to listen to happier music, first off. Everything is always like the biggest of big problems. And I kind of feel that way about Stejkal as well. Like, what did Stejkal say again now about how bad it is?
Okay. Going back
to make sure I'm getting it right.
Okay. It was a 3-step, and I read the first. So first step. We can talk tactics, we can talk roster choices, we can talk individual performances, or we can talk about what matters. The USMNT pool is weaker than it's been in quite some time. That's step
Okay,
one.
quite some time. So that's a little vague.
And then let me know when you want me to continue.
No, that's fine. That was the point I wanted. I'm not 100% sure of that. Now, I know in his article he gets into a big point that I completely agree with. It's a disjointed pool at the moment because, and I do think there is a reason for it, you didn't qualify for 2 straight Olympics. That's why the Josh Sargent thing fires me up, because when you don't have players who come through tournament play, whether it is a qualifying process or the final tournament, you don't understand what it's like in the same way. Sargent not getting an opportunity to either be part of the Gold Cup roster or playing significant minutes with the U20s is a big miss, just like it was for the generation. I believe SDH defined it as players who were born between 90 and 94. And
yes.
How they're not in this team in the same way that they are in other teams and the way they should be in this team, because that should be prime time for a lot of these guys. I feel like there is a group of players in that time frame that did not develop in the way that they should have. Now, then you take it to Train's question about the U20s. I disagree that now, okay, it's a problem for the U20 group and that you can't hype them up or over. I worry about overhyping them, obviously. I think with young players, that's something I try to stress, is there's so many things that are unpredictable about young players. You don't know what their life is going to be. You don't know if they're going to make the right club move. You don't know if they're going to find a bad run of form at the wrong time. You don't know if they're going to have an injury. There's so many unknowns. You do have to be careful about overhyping. I don't think anybody's overhyping individuals out of this U20 group. And that's the bigger issue. Like, are people excited about the win over France? Yes, and they should be. You don't want to diminish that, because that's a good performance. It's a good win. You fought back to win it. You showed character in that win that we've been looking for. So, no, I don't think you should undersell that. And I don't think there's too much overhype about individuals on this team. Certain players have stood out. Paxton Pomacall has been very, very good. Very, very good. Does that mean that now we can't say good things about Paxton Pomacall because it might overhype him, because you're worried about a Carlton or whatever? I don't think overhyping had anything to do with Andrew Carlton. I think it has to do with the fact that it's hard to be a world-class soccer player. And there's no guarantees. For every Andrew Carlton, there's 50 Brazilians every cycle that get this. There's 50 Argentines every cycle that get this. It happens. It's not easy. Sometimes, as a professional athlete, the best run you have is at 16 or at 18 or 20. For some, it's at 30. There's no guarantee that you're able to be that from 16 through 34. It's borderline impossible. When it happens, we cherish it, because what Lionel Messi has done, for example, doesn't happen. Just doesn't happen. That's why it's so unbelievable that it is happening. Diego Maradona, for me, and I'll have this argument with people, I think at his peak, he was the best player in the history of the game. At his peak. Well, his peak was very short because, 1, he had injuries. 2, he discovered substances. 3, he had just a bad personality to be the best player in the world. He couldn't handle it. Maybe that's why some of the substances came into play, among other things. His peak was very small. He was maybe at his absolute peak at the 86 World Cup. Maybe the year before that and the year after. You might give him one more year after that. It might be like 85 to 88. At his peak, unfreaking believable. I haven't seen one player dominate a World Cup like that in 86. What Messi has done over a career is borderline impossible. And no, he doesn't have that World Cup to his name. But to be as good as he has been for as long as he has been, it's borderline impossible. So you get back to an Andrew Carlton. Have we seen the best of Andrew Carlton? We don't know yet. Freddie Adu went through this. Freddie Adu had a great U20 World Cup. Then it didn't really happen for him. I think he made some bad decisions on where he played his club game. I think he had bad representation that forced him into some bad situations. I don't think that's the case with Andrew right now. I think Andrew's a young man who's figuring out how to be a professional and how to reach his ultimate goals. There's no guarantees for that. So I'm not going to say that you can't talk about the U20 World Cup team and the strong performance in beating France and a good run in the tournament, because sometimes young players don't make it as far as we thought they might. I don't think that's really a fair way to look at it. I think it's more of looking at how hard it is to do it. And I hope Andrew comes good and is the player that we expect that he can be. I think Andrew Carlton will be a professional soccer player for a long time. Do we know at what level? No, we just don't yet. And that's okay.
And Train's favorite match is the Women's World Cup final from 2011. Great game, awesome result.
Yeah, that was a great game. And that's one that I think gets left out of the shuffle a bit because it didn't end well for the U.S. And that Japan team in 11 is one of the great stories in the women's game. It wasn't that long after the earthquake, right?
Yeah.
I know they were still dealing with it.
Yeah, and that was one of their touchstones for that season.
Well, for that World Cup, yeah, obviously.
For that World Cup,
that's motivation because you're trying to lift your people back home, and that Japan team is, if you look at the game in a way that I do, and I loved that Japan team, even though they beat the U.S. in that. Obviously, I'm biased, but the Japan team played the game the way that I love to see the game played. Very technical, a lot of team play. Didn't really have that blow-away, unbelievable individual talent. I don't think they didn't have an Abby Wambach. They didn't have an Alex Morgan. They didn't have a Megan Rapinoe. But they had players who could play all over the field. And they never quit, and they fought so hard. But they played the game the right way. And if you have not heard of a coach and an administrator in the game called Tom Byer, I would recommend you go check him out. Tom Byer is an American who played in Japan in the pre-J League days and stayed in Japan. And he started coaching and really working on developing technique at young ages. And what was interesting was, as he was starting to do that, he got involved in doing like coaching sessions, like technical sessions on Japanese morning TV. He got it like a segment sponsored, and he's like showing kids how to, pull a Cruyff turn and stuff like that on Japanese morning TV. And from there, like, he got stuff sponsored in the manga comic books, and like ton of support from corporate entities to allow him to do this. But then he's able to make technical training, skill development training for young kids a mainstream thing. And it 100% influenced that Japan women's team in 2011, the Japan men's program around that time as well. You had players coming through that were just more technical, flat out. And it showed, and the quality showed, and the performances showed. And now Tom Byer has went on to be involved in programs in Australia and in China, and he's starting to get involved in some programs in the United States. I know the Houston Dynamo have brought him in to work with pre-academy and figure out like kind of a curriculum and a philosophy there. Definitely a person to look at that gets lost in the shuffle of it, and that Japan team gets lost in the shuffle. It was an unbelievable cycle for them. And to see a player like a Hamari Sawa have the tournament that she had and lift the trophy for her country, it's one of the great stories of the women's game. Absolutely.
Dan James, in the discussion of favorite moments, Jarrett posted the video of Rapinoe to Wambach against Brazil. Dan says, wow, I find it interesting that Ian Dark commentated both that and the John Brooks header against Ghana, hashtag U.S. Talisman. And he also did the Landon Donovan goal, too.
He did. That's funny. He was at the focal point of all of that for ESPN. So, yeah. I don't know which one I like the best. Which one of those calls I like the best. The Donovan one maybe because of the Go-Go USA thing. That was pretty cool. Yeah, I might go with that one. I might go with that one as my favorite.
Daniel Price says his favorite moment was back in 2015 when the women's national team beat Japan to win the cup. Just starting to get into my soccer addiction, it really started to solidify my interest into this amazing game. I was enjoying some wings and summits, and I'll never forget the win. It was my first time going out somewhere to watch a soccer match wearing red, white, and blue like everyone else around me. Lots of fun.
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, that was absolutely crazy start to a match. You know, like we had viewing parties throughout that tournament over at Diesel Filling Station in Virginia Highland. And we had viewing parties for the men's tournaments for a couple of years. And I'd been to viewing parties a bunch of different places for U.S. games. I can't ever remember, and I don't know if we'll ever see it again, a start to a match like that one. It was 4 goals in, 20 minutes, if that?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit. I think the 4th goal might have been a little bit longer. I think it was 3 goals in 12. I mean, it was something just absurd.
And then Carly Lloyd.
Well, and that one to finish it. That was the one that finished it. But, I mean, I think it was the 3rd goal was so quick after the 2nd. It's like you're still celebrating the 2nd, and you turn around and you're like, 3? What? What is happening?
Uh-huh. Yep.
It was the craziest start, period.
Oh, Daniel is suggesting SDH watch party for Open Cup.
It's possible. It might be a very last-minute kind of thing because we are going to try to get this done to be able to call this game. There is only it's crazy. There's only one game in Atlanta United's history, in an official match, not a preseason game. There's only one game in Atlanta United's history that I have not called somewhere. We didn't have radio for, or did we have radio for the 2017 Open Cup games? I can't remember. I know we called the stream, and I know in 18 we did both. But one game, the second game in the 2017 Open Cup in Miami. That's the only one that that I have not called for some platform. Official game, not a preseason game. So yeah. I'd love to call it, and we're gonna try everything possible, but rights are rights, and it appears that these are stone cold with ESPN across the board on all platforms. And I mean, I'm with Mike. I wish that if ESPN was going to offer a radio broadcast, then yeah, they have the rights. Do it. But if they're not going to offer it, I wish they wouldn't stand in the way of someone wanting to offer it in a local market. So don't know. I mean, that's how these things go. But fingers crossed that we're able to do it. If not, it honestly might be a Tuesday morning type of thing. Like, okay, we're not calling it. We've tried everything we can. Yeah, we're going to watch it here. Come join us. So stay tuned.
Yes, stay tuned. Tafka and Percy are going back and forth right now about Andrew Carlton, but it started with Tafka going, Carlton still has plenty of time to get back on track. It's hardly a, quote, too late for him now, end quote, scenario.
I would absolutely agree with that. And I did see Percy said the ifs, and then the final thing from Percy, and I'm sure this is not as – it's Twitter. You don't get full context, and you don't get to always expand on everything. To say that Carlton would be done if he doesn't get starts for the Open Cup or perform well, I would disagree with that. I think sometimes it takes longer for players. And, that doesn't mean if he doesn't play in the Open Cup, if he doesn't have a great rest of the season, that he's done. I think that's a little harsh for a player at his age. I really do. It's just not a definite on what that timetable is for some players. Some guys, it takes longer. Some guys burst through immediately. Some guys give you glimpses early, and then it takes them longer once they get to a certain level. It just happens. It happens across any sport, at any level, in any country. It's just part of the deal. I think Atlanta has now, if you want to look back, like I wish Carlton had got some minutes in 16 after he was signed to a homegrown deal in USL. USL was a different place then. And you had Charleston, which, look, Andrew Carleton fitting into the way the Charleston Battery played, he didn't really fit. They're pretty direct. They're pretty, they're not really a possession-oriented team. Andrew Carleton's a player that you want on the ball a lot. So he didn't really fit with that. That's the tough thing about not having that USL team. I honestly think that part of the reason Atlanta launched Atlanta United 2 as quickly as they did is because you didn't want to have that happen. You wanted minutes for your Andrew Carletons, your Chris Goslins, and so on and so forth. It's been a little slow for him. That's okay. That doesn't mean he can't end up being the player that we think he can be. I honestly think that Andrew Carleton can be what Paxton Pomykal has been for the U20s. I think he can be a player that gives you a lot of that. I think athletically they're very similar. I think the way that they play can be very similar. I think Carleton can give you some of that. I don't know if Carleton's a true winger. I think he's probably a little bit more of a true number 10 than Pomykal. I think Pomakal's more naturally an attacking 8. But I think that type of impact is what Carleton can give you. Now he's got to continue to put it together to do that on a regular basis, and that's what we're wanting to see. But to say that he's close to being done, I think that's some hyperbole.
Fantasy, Prize Picks, USL Championship on ESPN Plus.
Yes, USL Championship on ESPN Plus. If you're not a subscriber by now, I don't know if you've ever listened to the show before. So subscribe to ESPN Plus. If you want to watch Atlanta United in the Open Cup, subscribe to ESPN Plus because that's the only way to consume it right now. $4.99 a month. It's a stupid good deal. You're going to get the Copa America in English as well. So get on that. Get on it ahead of the kickoff tonight, unless you want to come out at Fifth Third Bank Stadium and see a really good game up close. Atlanta United 2 and New York Red Bulls 2 kick off at 7:30 tonight in USL Championship. And let's go to fantasy. What's the schedule for the weekend? We went through your team, and I think we workshopped you into some good points this week with the NYC contingent.
Other than the own goals, which took away from it.
Stop complaining. We're not perfect, okay? I can't control own goals, but I did tell you Anton Tinnerholm was a big one, and you had Morales, I think, already. So
correct. Yeah, I had Morales
there. Tinnerholm was a good addition, so I will. I'm going to hold my hand up and take credit on that one.
As you should. I'm not going to deny that.
All right, but you had Morales, and Morales got you more, and he got a goal late to get you even more.
Yeah. Yep. And so with the injury to Barrios, or him being questionable, I've removed him, which I can do.
Okay. Risky. What do you got?
Well, hang on.
No, I want to see who you
because this is the last week. Okay, so Chanot, Tinnerholm, and Morales got me 33 points total last night.
That's pretty good.
Actually, so it was the injury to Johnny Russell was what I looked at. Barrios has now changed back to playing. So what I did with my salary structure is someone on the back line that got injured. So I removed whoever that was injured and put in Emro Tarek, which gave me enough money to swap out Pozuelo for Johnny Russell for Pozuelo.
Okay, I can buy that. Tarek on the road in Philly, but not bad.
So it's Vega, Youngworth, Chanot, who has played, now Emro Tarek, Tinnerholm, who has played, Felipe Gutierrez, Morales, who has played, Pozuelo, Barrios, Kamara, and Wando.
Well, more importantly, I mean, I'm sure that there are some people who are tracking your points each week. If you're playing and you have not finalized your lineup for the weekend, these are the things you need to know.
Yes.
Tonight, 7 o'clock, Toronto hosting Sporting Kansas City. Tomorrow, 3 matches. San Jose hosting Dallas at 3:30. Philadelphia hosting the Red Bulls at 7:30. And Colorado hosting Minnesota at 9 o'clock.
Connor Casey effect.
Kai Kamara could be a good play here, just saying.
Got him.
San Jose players could be a good play here. Wando could be a good play here. So
Got them.
Those are your 4 games for MLS Fantasy in the final week of the spring season. So you got to get your players locked in. You're probably going to want to look at lineups as they come out an hour before kick because there are some difficult decisions with international players away, with injuries. There's some tough calls here for managers. So take a look at those lineups. They'll come out an hour before, but those are your times. Toronto, Kansas City, 7 o'clock tonight. San Jose, Dallas, 3:30 tomorrow. Philadelphia, Red Bull, 7:30 tomorrow. Colorado, Minnesota, 9 o'clock tomorrow. Thank you to the Jason Wright Agency for sponsoring our fantasy league. Jason Wright, AGEN on Twitter, Jason Wright Agency on Facebook. Make sure you're following. You have insurance needs, whether it's personal, whether it's auto, whether it is commercial. Hit up Jason Wright. He can help you out.
Yes.
Prize Picks.
Prize Picks.
Your daily fantasy. You've got 8 players on the board for the weekend. Now, the way you can get involved in this and the way that we can help you get involved in this is you go sign up for Prize Picks, you make a deposit. 25% of that deposit will be matched if you use the code SDH when you set up your account. You'll also get a free $25 two-pick play. Now, the way this works, it's pretty simple. They're going to give you a projected number for points that a player will earn. You pick, is the player going to go over or is the player going to be under? It's that simple. And you can pick across different sports. You've got everything going on this weekend. You've got golf. You've got baseball. You've got basketball, both men's and women's. You've got MMA. You've got hockey. You've got tennis. You've got esports. And the esports board is up. And you've got 4 possible picks. And I am going to tell you that the number 40 for Cyclone Spin, who plays with Splice. I don't know if Cyclone Spin's going to have a good weekend. I'm going to go with the under for Cyclone Spin. Yeah, I'm going to go with the under. So there's your pick on esports for the weekend. But let's talk about the one we probably know a little bit more about. 8 MLS players on the board. Chris Wondolowski with an 8 is the number. That's a high one. Jesus Ferreira, Dallas, 3. Kasper Przybylko for Philadelphia, 5.5. Daniel Royer, 5. Pozuelo, 5.5. Kai Kamara, 5. Darwin Quintero, 5.5. Josie Altidore, 4. Don't pick Josie Altidore because he's not going to play.
No. Well, you could pick Josie and go under.
No, he's not going to play, so that will be thrown out. Your points, so you know, on the soccer side of it, it's a goal is 5 points, an assist is 3 shots. Shots on goal are 1 point. You lose points for yellow cards and red cards.
Kamara over.
Yeah, Kai Kamara over is the one that I like the most. Jesus Ferreira over is intriguing to me because all you need is a goal for him to be over, or 3 shots to equal, or an assist to match. So, Wondolowski at 8. That one worries me a bit.
Yeah.
Potentially go under there. Yeah, Kamara over is the one I like the most. Royer over I kind of like. That's a goal for him. A goal, then the shot would get him over. So, Kamara over, Royer over, Ferreira over, Wondolowski under, Darwin Quintero under are the ones that grab my attention.
There you go.
So use the code SDH when you set up your account. Some of you already have. Thank you for that. It does benefit the show. And hopefully it benefits you. I mean, hopefully you're winning some money with the Prize Picks.
For real, yo.
I've had some pretty good success with Prize Picks. MLS has been a little tougher to call. I had some good success on the NBA side during the season. So take a look across the board at Prize Picks. You can mix and match if there's just one MLS guy you like. You have to make 2. You have to do a 2-pick play. That's the minimum. But if you like the Kai Kamara suggestion and then you like somebody in the NBA Finals, go for it. If you like somebody in baseball this weekend, go for it. You can mix and match. It's fun. And make sure you're following them on their social media accounts because they'll drop some special things for you. They'll have a a free play on some players. They'll have a bonus on some players. If you get a pick in a certain window of time, you'll get a better number on a player.
Yep.
And their app is available now for your iPhone. It's also available for your Android phone. It is available on Android as of this week. So thank you to My Prize Picks for supporting the show. Thank you to Jason Wright for supporting the show. Thank you to Steve Apolinski and Apolinski and Associates for supporting the show and our tailgate shows. Thank you to everybody who listens. We really, really appreciate it. We'll be back on Monday morning to talk about Atlanta United 2, to talk about the first weekend of the Women's World Cup, to talk about the US U20s in the quarterfinals against Ecuador. Man, it's a tough one. Ecuador has been so good. Lots of things to talk about on Monday, but we'll be back at 9 a.m. with y'all then. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha Atlanta United 2, y'all.